but I realized that I have nothing I can do right now. So I figured I'd do a live feed. Let's see who the first person to show up. Usually in the morning, it's Jeremy Russell, Native Wild Man, Bradley, a couple other people that show up pretty readily first thing in the morning. Let's see. Making a cup of coffee. Let's see who's first. Whoever logs in first, make sure that you put it like who's here, because I'm curious who's going to be the first person to show up. 5 people. Bradley. Don't know if you were the first person, but Mr. Morgan, I figured you might be one of the first ones. So, what's going on, guys? I have nothing to do today at all. I have nothing at all to do. And so I've been bored. Can't really go anywhere. So I thought I'd do a live feed. What's up, Frank? Guys, I'm going to tell you something that I found by watching watchmaking videos that I tested. Works amazing. These are what are called scratch brushes. So there's a nylon one, there's a steel one, there's a brass one, and there's a fiberglass one. And the fiberglass one, I'm here to tell you, is really good for taking rust, little surface rust, off of knives. I tested it on some stuff. I've been playing with them. I was watching watchmaking videos because, you guys know, I've told you, I can't sleep. I don't sleep well. So like midnight, 1 o'clock, I'll put something on that doesn't require any volume because most of the time they're not talking. They come in really handy. I did some testing on titanium. I used the brass one and the glass one to remove the anodizing on that fake Norseman scale when I ground it to dust, which that video is up right now for the members and will be up tomorrow for everyone else. There's no grit on these. One's nylon, one's steel, one's brass, and one's fiberglass. But they worked really well. They didn't scratch up the titanium because there's things I wanted to do. Like if I wanted to change color in here, but not lose that milled surface finish where it would change the color on my Norseman, which yes, it has been in my pocket pretty much constantly, which is part of the reason we're having a hard time with videos is I haven't carried anything else. The other thing is I don't have anything else. So if you guys have stuff that you'd like to see in a video, feel free to send it to me. Can't promise I'll do the sharpening on it right now, but I definitely could do some, do a review. Because all my stuff's put away. I did do some kitchen knives for a guy. Yes, I did. I had some copper sulfate. Like I said, I can't remember what I used it for in the yard, but I had some copper sulfate. I put a 1/4 of a teaspoon or 1/2 a teaspoon in a bottle of water, shook it up to a spray bottle, sprayed the threads, sprayed the pivot, wiped everything down, let it all dry. Then I put the Loctite in, and yeah, it's locked up pretty well. So allow me to get my creamer. So I get really upset with silly things. So I was gonna see, is this the one? Okay, yeah, here we go. I get upset with silliness. So this says ingredients: ultra pasteurized milk and cream. The next line, warning, contains milk. I don't get it. I feel as though there's things I want to say here. This is why you guys should. I'm getting ready to film some videos for Full 30 that are my opinions on what's going on in the frickin' world right now, because I can't put them here because I get frustrated with that. I've gotten really good at walking that gray line of what I'm allowed to do on YouTube. I actually have gotten really good at it. I haven't had anything come up that has been questionable. I haven't had any videos that got demonetized, except videos they promised wouldn't be demonetized because they said old videos can be grandfathered when they changed some of the monetization rules, and then they went ahead and went and demonetized a bunch of my other stuff. If you don't believe me, you can go Demolition Ranch did a video about the same thing too. They basically demonetized his whole channel, even though they said they came out with these new monetization rules. They said videos that have been up, we're not going to change the policy on those. They'll be fine, and they still took them down. So I'm that's why this cup is out. That's the kind of mood I've been in. But it hasn't been that bad because I have that outlet, full30.com. So there's stuff up there that I may have opinions and stuff that I just don't say here. And I'm not one of those, I don't want anybody to think like I'm one of those crazy far-right conspiracy theorists. Not. If anything, I'm more middle-leaning centrist when it comes to my political views. I'm kind of fed up with everything that's going on in this country right now. So, but not to get into any of that, and we don't need to comment on that. We're not going to make any political comments here. I'm just letting you guys know that there will be some stuff up on Full30 where you can go and watch and make comments about it. Because I'm going to take down any comments that follow along anything, anybody says anything about any of the political pundits. So, but at any rate, what's been going on? We found a place, it seems, though. So we had TS Prof. I don't like fixtured systems, so you're not gonna. I can't give you an honest opinion because I've never seen one. I think it looks like a really fancy Edge Pro. I do everything freehand. And then the other thing is, how do I feel about Buck knives? Buck knives make some pretty good knives. I just haven't had one for a while that I liked. So I just haven't seen a buck knife in a while that I really like. So, and that's why I did that. I just let you know the reason why I have videos that are going up on Full30, because there's just stuff I can do and say, like, I can talk about firearms. So it's, you know, I can do stuff there. I can talk about ammunition and tactical lights for pew-pews and things like that I just can't do here. Now, I am going to do my thoughts on the Edge Pro. Well, I gave the system away and kept the stones. So the stones are great. I don't like fixtured systems. So you're not going to get, like, if you're looking to me for an opinion about a fixture system, you're going to be disappointed because I'm going to tell you, I think they all are crap. They might be well made. They might do their purpose, but I personally don't think that they are. This is not where we talk about pew-pews and things like that. But yes, I have. So that's for the other channel, Frank. So, you know, some fixtured systems are okay, but I just think that they're limiting. I don't like the Edge Pro. With the Edge Pro, you got to do this weird hand dance where you got to flip the thing. So, I mean, the stones are great, and like even to the point where I still buy stuff from their website. I got one of these. This is a 10-inch ceramic kitchen rod with a foot, so you can put it down and drag the knife on it instead of having to try and do the freehand thing. You can just set this down on the floor and then or on the counter and just go at it. These are great. So I just don't use them. I had one, I used it a few times. I had at one point, I had it so that like, if people had a specific angle, like I would do that for customers when I had it. I'm like, all right, you want a specific angle, I can get it pretty close on that. But even with that, even with an Edge block, one of the problems with it is, with an Edge Pro is, even when you buy them, the stones are different thicknesses. So setting that level on the bar, it basically does you nothing. Because the next stone is going to be at a different angle because it's thinner. So then you have to try and find a workaround, which what a lot of people do is then they just put a new stone on and then put a black marker on it, and then they see if they're hitting their apex. Well, that takes time. Another way to do it is you put a drill collar on the area, and then that way you measure your stone off of it so the drill collar stays. You put your stone in between the top of the thing and the drill collar and push it down so it's flat, then lock it in, and then that sets your angle based on each stone. That's the easiest way, but it's still not perfect. It still doesn't get you 100% where you want to go. So having to deal with all of that and the stones all being different thicknesses, then you have the KME, which the stones are steel plates with, you know, then you have steel plates basically with diamond on them, and well, they wear out. That's the problem with them, they wear out, but at least they're all the same thickness. You don't have to worry about that. And I really don't like the edge you get from those diamond plates. I I've went back and forth with different sharpening stones. I've had the centered diamond stones. I've had uh, I basically went the gambit of impregnated. What I haven't had yet are the vitrified diamond stones that Big Brown Bear has. I've sharpened on he had a vitrified CBN stone at Blade Show West last time I was there, and I sharpened on that, and it seemed great. If the diamond ones are good, I've seen the videos. It seems like the 400 grit just is a beast. It just cuts really fast. So I mean, I haven't tried those yet, but I mean, most of the stuff that I sharpen, my personal stuff, I only need the aluminum oxide stones. There's very few knives that I have that fall into that realm of that I absolutely would have to have the diamonds. I can get by with the aluminum oxide stones because regardless of what people say, I don't think the majority of the knives that I'm sharpening, the carbides, are still under a 9 on the Mohs hardness scale, which is where aluminum oxide is, which means it's still cutting. And I just think that I think that they leave a more consistent edge than the diamond ones do because the diamond ones load up and I have to constantly be like, I mean, constantly the reason I switched back was, oh no, I did a whole video about it. That whole video about why it's worth what they charge for it. It definitely is. It is an engineering, it is engineered very well. It's definitely worth that price considering they make everything except the balls. But at any rate, what I was saying is, I think like I feel like I get a more consistent sharpening with less maintenance because the diamond stones, when you start getting past like the 400 grit, they slick up and they glaze up like that. The aluminum, I like them. Don't get me wrong. Those aluminum, the matrix stones, the Edge Pro matrix stones, but the issue with them is that you have to reflatten them so often. So that means that I have to move everything out. All the knives have to be moved. And I have to put down the powder in the water, and then I have to flatten them. Then I have to clean everything up because you don't want that down in the guts of a knife. You don't want any residual of the aluminum oxide used for flattening the stones. You don't want any of that laying out. You got to make sure that you wash the stones a couple times, wash everything up, because if it gets on them, then it leaves a deep scratch because it's like 120 grit, 220 grit aluminum oxide powder. So if you're at 4,000 grit and one of those little fucking pieces of it gets on there, you've got a bunch of deep scratches. So, it's so much trouble to use them because they just slick up so fast that I was just like, you know what? As nice as they are, I just think that the aluminum oxide's a better bet because they don't cross-contaminate as badly. They're easier to maintain. They don't require being maintained as often. And I don't think for the majority of steels that the diamonds cut any better. I really don't. What was this? It's good, man. Take a bath. We should just Biden Harris administration. No, we're not talking about that, Chris. So yeah, the stones, the stone issue. I've just reached a point where okay, I've tried everything. I have them in my quiver of arrows that I can use because there are times that you need to, I'm not gonna lie. To put the initial edge on one of my handmade knives that is 20 CV at its maximum hardness and wear resistance. Yeah, I definitely still do use those first couple diamond stones, like the 80 grit, the 220, and then the 600, and then I'll go back and hit that 600 again on a 400, then a 600 aluminum oxide, and then all the way up to 1,000, and I get into my other stones that I can get beyond that. But I mean, lately, 1,000 grit's where I've been going because I haven't been to a show to show off like the higher grit edges, and I've had people's like 12,000 grit edge on a knife. That's insane. I'm like, it can be, but you guys understand, like the majority of my sharpening customers, when I first started setting that out, and I was doing that, the first of my customers were straight razor customers, and I finished stones up to 12,000 grit. And when I started doing a lot of knives, I was doing a lot of higher end knives for like clients that were collectors and they wanted this beautiful, clear, crisp 10,000 grit edge. They weren't ever going to use it. And there's 13 people here and only 6 likes. So I don't want you to think, like, I think that every knife has to be sharpened up to 10,000 grit. That's just what you see in videos, because a lot of times that's what was getting sent to me, were higher end knives that people want to put in a collection. There's a lot of knives, lots of knives that customers tell me that they just want it to 1,000 grit. Uh, had a couple come in that had some kitchen knives, and so those stones were not packed up. I could have used. I had some stones I could use on that to just get to 1,000 grit. There's some like beater stones that I use for other stuff, and so I did their kitchen knives for them to 1,000 grit, and they came out great. So no, I don't think everything has to go so super fine. And my phone is trying to overheat. I can tell because the brightness just dropped. So what's everybody else doing? I'm only going to be on here for about another 15 minutes. Probably do like 30 minutes. Oh, discoveries that I made that you're going to find in the video about destroying this fake Norseman. This was not M390. Check to see what angle I created. It's really hard to see what angle because I don't do a V angle. I do a convex. So all of mine start from the apex and come back. So there's not one set angle. I actually rock the stone and the knife. I did a video about it, Chris, if you want to go find it. I talked about it. You can't measure it in degrees because it's going to be different because it's a radiused edge. It's a convex edge. So at the apex, I'm not really sure. So there's not one real constant angle to try and measure. So like I said, we ground this all into dust, the blade, and I had kept these, and I talk about it at the end of the video. These are not AL4V titanium. That's why they felt weird. That's why they felt light. That's why they felt soft. And what this is CP, and I know this because that's not the color I should have got at that voltage. So Elliot, I was telling him, I was like, man, this stuff feels weird, and like I'm not hitting the colors I want. And he goes, do me a favor. Go toss it in the multi-edge. I pulled it out of the multi-edge. I was like, multi-edge is really frothy. And it took, like, it really, really stripped it quick. And I was like, I read it in. He goes, do me a favor. Go anodize that. And I was like, I already did it at 20 and I didn't get what I wanted. He's go do it at 40. He's like, I know what it should be at 40. He's like, just, you've already etched it, so it should go in, and you really didn't take that much finish off of it. And I tossed it in at 40 volts, and this is what we got. And this is not the color we should have got. He came, he looked at me, he goes, it's CP. Commercial pure. This is AL4V. Now what AL4V is, it's aluminum, titanium, and vanadium combined in this, and it makes titanium and aluminum make an alloy kind of like the Nitnell stuff, where it makes an alloy where it's actually harder combined than either element by itself. So it's actually a bit harder. And then you have the vanadium in it, which gives it a little bit more rigidity and strength and impact resistance and things like that. And that's why you don't get as much deformation on lock bars of knives with an AL4V lock bar and no steel lock bar insert. This is a good bit softer, gummier. It deforms. And I noticed that like it just felt different if you're working with it and things like that. And I was like, that makes sense. So this knife, this knockoff, was not M390. It was not AL4V titanium like they said it was. And it would not have been a worthwhile purchase for anyone. So trying to compare it to this, people that do that, they're woefully mistaken. And those are $300. So not only is that the fake steel and not the proper titanium, you're paying $300. Like there's other knives out there are really nice for $300 that are made out of the material that they say they're made out of. Knockoffs. Don't buy knockoffs. So I missed one here. Steve, what was that dice game you were playing with your daughter called? Oh, it's called Jackpot. And it is I only ever saw it in Southeast Asia. It was a bar game, and you'd sit at the bar, and you could actually bet with the bar girls there. So I went a few times after I got married, and so I just kind of hung out at the bar, and you'd play Jenga for drinks, you play the jackpot game for drinks, and so you're just sitting there. It's a good time, and you're watching like the Thai kickboxing in the middle, and so. That's what I did, and I liked it so much that as we were leaving the one time, they had them on the pier. They were selling them, and I bought one, and I lost the dice for it, so I bought some more dice. It's a fun little game. Just a real simple, like, dice game, and so you got numbers 1 through 9. and you have two dice, and you can either add up the items on the dice and flip one, like 5 and 4 is 9, 6 and 3 is 9. You can do that, or you can take the face value of the dice and flip two. Like if you have, like you've already used, if say you've already used 4 and you have a 1 and a 3, you can hit the 1 and 3 and take those out, because some of those weirder numbers are harder to hit, especially 7, 8, 9. Those are the hard ones. You always hit the middle ones in that game for some reason, but it's a blast. My daughter and I enjoy playing it. I play it by myself. It's actually on the love seat in my bedroom. But that's just like a little handmade wooden game that I brought back from, I'm pretty sure Thailand or Vietnam. I'm not sure which. I think it was Thai. I'm pretty sure it was Thailand. 12 people, 8 likes. I'm gonna keep doing it just because I get bored. Is the concept Main Street a Spyderco Yojimbo clone? I don't know. Mr. Morgan, I don't know. I don't know if I've seen that yet. I tell you guys all the time, unless it's something that catches my eye in my subscriptions, something that Nick Shabazz put up or Neves. There's not a whole lot of YouTube knife channels that I subscribe to. I go and check them occasionally. I'm not even actually, to tell you the truth, as much as Nick and I are friends. Nick Shabazz and I are friends. I'm not subscribed to his channel. I just occasionally, about once a week, go in and see what Nick has put up and see if there's anything I'm interested in watching. Because there's a lot of times that I'll take Nick's videos and see them, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm pretty sure that if anybody asks me if I want to see that knife, I don't need him to send it, because I'm pretty sure just by looking at it, that's not going to be a knife that I could give a good review of. So, but I don't know if you guys saw it. Nick did a video about the sea snake, and Nick is pretty picky, but I mean, he didn't tear it apart. It's still like, he really didn't have a lot of negative to say about it, except just the fact that, like, for him, the way it is, he just really couldn't use it. And I was pretty sure I had told him that it doesn't come with the soft loops, but I think he got confused on that. So, I mean, there was some people that were on there that were like, yeah, it's a really great knife. And then there's a guy that has just been going on every video talking about this piece of crap and what a piece of shit I am, and like it's a horrible design, and that, you know, I'm profiteering off of Chinese slave labor. And he, on Nick's, he was like, he is in fact not a great guy. And I was like, bro, you don't have to try and go on every one of, just because I blocked him from my channel. I was like, just because I blocked you from my channel, you do not have to go to every video review of my product that I designed and try and ruin my sales. So, oh, will be at Blade West. I will be at Blade Show West. Unsure if we're going to be at Blade in Atlanta. I may be, but there's a good possibility I'm not. I'd be going with Artisan if I go. So, you know, there's a chance I might be at Blade in Atlanta, maybe, but I'm definitely going to the Blade West in Long Beach, and mainly because we don't have to fly anywhere. Nico and I don't have to have lodging. I technically, if I wanted to, I could stay at home and drive from home. It's like an hour from my house to the venue, but we're going to stay at Matthew's parents' house, at Tino's house is the plan. And so basically we've got, you know, it's like, that's like 20 or 30 minutes from Long Beach, from the venue. So, I mean, we're going to be there. I'll be at the Artisan table a lot. We are going to still film, but we've got, you know, we have to work the table because Artisan's basically footing the bill for us to go to the show. That's the plan anyway. That's the big, wide, overreaching plan. So I talked with Russell from Artisan this morning. I mean, we might go, I might be going to Atlanta, but if I go, I don't think the Hobbit would be going with me. So, oh, new shirts. There's new shirts on my merch store, guys. Let me see if it's out here. Is it out here? So they're a customizable shirt. Let me go find it out here. So they put them up and they weren't available. Of that. Who said anything about that? So here's the new shirts. Let me turn this around and you can see it. So these are customizable. You can put your name on them. Let's turn this around. So this is the heather color. So when you go on, you can customize. There's a spot that says full 30, but you can then customize that, and it's got the logo on it. They're really nice shirts too. So that is, I got that specifically when they said they were available. I got that before going Blade Show because mask. I mean, don't get me wrong. Everybody's gonna recognize this, and I'm even prepared, for Blade West because if you look, this one's starting to come apart here and it's getting kind of greasy and grubby. So you guys already saw the picture, but this is my dressing up to go out hat. Can you see how worn and faded this one has become? Because this is the exact same hat. They were that exact color. So that's my dressing up. That's my Sunday go to meeting hat. So, it's a joke. Now this one's starting to get, if you look, this one is starting to break and come apart and stuff, and it has stretched, and I can't take that back apart because it's glued. I don't think you should. I mean, don't get me wrong. Buck makes a good, solid product. I just haven't seen anything that really fired my cylinders. I mean, still Buck 110 probably. I think that the Buck 110 and the Buck 113 Ranger are probably the best knives that they've made. Except they had a couple of fixed blades that my dad had, the black handle, the special. I can't remember what model number it was. They call it the special. And then I always wanted one of the Buckmasters, the Rambo style survival knives with the anchor spikes and shit. I always wanted one of those, but I don't like the Buck Marksman with the Hawk Lock. I don't like it. It did not get a glowing review. It's not a bad knife. It just didn't get a good glowing review from me. I have a couple of old antique knives that my best friend's dad sent me that I've got to get done and sent off. They don't require much. They're simple carbon steel. I just have to. I have some older stones that I'll use for. I have a couple Arkansas stones that I'm going to use for that. That way I can use oil. That way they don't rust. So I'm going to use oil stones on that, which is another thing. Like guys, I have stones. I have oil stones, water stones. I have splash and goes. I have soaking stones. I have traditional Japanese water stones. I have natural water stones. I have composite stones. Like what you guys have seen in the drawers out there, which are empty right now because after somebody broke in and stole that shit and I had to replace like $100 worth of stones. There's so much stuff that I have for sharpening, ceramics and things like that like you just never saw because I don't use them very often. But yeah, I have a whole bunch of Arkansas stones and stuff that I've had forever. I have a razor stone that is a small little touch-up stone that is really great for certain things. It's a different stone. So, but if you're doing something like a really high carbon steel, you can get away with putting baking soda in the water and it helps a bit, but you still have to do with stuff. You still have to deal with stuff when you're doing it. It'll still rust. It's still water. If you use an oil stone, and the thing about oil stones is they're nice. Their maintenance is really easy. Like an Arkansas stone, you really don't have to flatten them. They kind of do their own thing. You wipe them. You can wipe them down and spray them with a little WD-40 to clean them up, and then just put a couple drops of. I actually use KPL to sharpen with because it does do. I'm gonna tell you guys, the KPL stuff, that knife pivot loop, it does exactly what it says it does, and I use it because as you're sharpening, it lifts that grit and keeps it up. It does not. Your stones don't load up at all. And even when I was using mineral oil for sharpening on those Arkansas stones, I would still have some glazing and some loading, and I would just have to wipe them off with WD-40 and then put them in the sink and use a scrubby pad with some baking, with the Comet scrub it, Comet powder and clean that out. Have I used the KPL Heavy? Yes. I use the KPL Heavy on the detents and on this one. And this one is dirty. This knife is dirty. It has been in my pocket constantly. Let's see if you can see how filthy that is here. No, I don't want to rotate it like that. I want to flip this. So if you guys try not to drop this on my finger, guys, can you see how dirty that is down in there? And it's still like, it doesn't even feel like there's anything has changed. It is perfect. And that the KPL Heavy seems to work pretty well. It doesn't go everywhere. You can put a good bit on your detent track. On, say you've got a knife that's a little bit gritty on the detent track, you can put a good bit and it doesn't get everywhere. It kind of just stays where it's at because it is a heavier, it's almost like a non-Newtonian, if I read it right, it's like a non-Newtonian liquid that is a shear thinning as opposed to a shear hardening. So when you look at like cornstarch and water, that's a shear rigiding. So under shear pressure, when you add pressure to it, it gets hard. It gets rigid. And that liquefies, that shear strength on that liquid, it stays like a gel until you add a little bit of energy or force, and then it thins. It's shear thinning. And so it thins out when it's under force and then goes back to its gel, just like a non-Newtonian liquid. It's pretty ingenious. I wouldn't use it on my washers. I don't think I would use it on my washers, but I have both. And I don't use oil on washers anyway. I use grease. Grease on washers, oil on bushing or on bearings. It's just the way how World War II bayonet my dad turned into a knife. The blade is discolored and pitted. Should I attempt to bring it back? No, I would not. Anytime you have anything that's an antique, it's always better to just clean it up and oil it. And when I say clean it up, I mean you put some oil on a rag and you wipe it down. And you wipe it off and you get a little bit of the rust off, and the rust soaks into that outer layer, or the oil soaks in that outer layer, and you just leave it be and you wipe it down like that every once in a while. Because antique stuff like that, I mean, I know it's already been modified, but the fact is, anytime you mess with that, you run into a chance that you're gonna cause damage. Because you might heat it up trying to buff it, things like that. You might take it apart to clean it, and then you run into some issues with that. If you did want to clean it up, I would say that this would be your best bet. This is, I was just showing these before you said this is a fiberglass brush. And it does do a really, really good job of taking rust, like cleaning excess rust off of stuff without damaging the material below. So I have some knives that have gotten rust on them over the years. And so I was touching them up and I was like, okay. But in all honesty, I would leave it. That outer layer, that outer darkened patina area on those carbon steels actually is protecting it. It does not, as long as it's not like heavy, heavy rust, I would say just spray it with some WD-40, wipe it down, put a little bit of actual gun oil on it and let that soak in. And then just wipe it down once a week when you first start, and then just let it be, and then just wipe it down every once in a while after that. Just as that outer layer kind of just breaks up because of the oil that's now on it, you'll get the majority of the heavy stuff off, and then just that outer layer, that outer coating that is on the steel itself, which is actually it's like a patina, that should stay. Don't ever use frog lube on your pivots. It gums up. It varnishes up and it gets gummy. I had Andy Leonard, the guy that runs Nowpack Group. I had his Chavez at one point. He was like, dude, the action on this is horrible. I was like, well, I want to film a video about a 228. Why don't you let me borrow it? And I had thought about buying it from him. And I was like, why don't you let me borrow it? And I'll do a video, but I'll clean it up for you. And somebody had used frog lube, and it literally took forever to get it out of the guts of that knife, even with simple green. And I wound up having to break down and use acetone and a brush to clean that out. And I was like, wow, I don't like frog lube. It's good for guns. like you put it on a gun and bake it on, and it leaves a pretty good coating. It's okay for guns. I don't really want that, but you know. But yeah, these have, so this one has, this is a fiberglass. So this is a fiberglass scratch brush. And then there's a brass one. So you can see those are brass bristles. And then there's a steel one that has, and it's not like heavy duty. So I used it on some titanium. It really didn't scratch it. And then there's also, like, if you happen to be doing something and you get like, if you get like polishing compound down in the holes, like in the pockets of your screws, a toothbrush is okay, but a lot of times the bristles just kind of move around. They don't get down in where you want, but this is really rigid, and you can adjust how much of it is out. So it depends like how far it's out, how much. Like that. Pretty thin, are they? What are we talking about? Pretty thin what? Would you ever go and try and ceramic coat? No. There'd be too much masking. You have to take too much stuff apart. And the fact is, like, the coating, you really can't, you'd have to mask your barrel, because you don't want it down your barrel, because then you're changing the diameter of your barrel, and you know, it's already tight, it's supposed to be, and then you're adding stuff to it. I don't think I would. And while it holds up really well on knives, 2 reasons I wouldn't. One, the amount of it you would have to be able to have a tub big enough that you could suspend the part in to electrically apply it is a lot, and that shit is $60 for a bottle. And I think I want to say that it's $60 for a half gallon. And so the brushes fit down into a traditional, they should. Like, this is pretty thin, and I can get, where did I put those brushes? I literally just had them. So if you needed to, and I'm just going to use the nylon one. Like, if you needed to get down, oh shit. Like, if you happen to need to get down inside and clean out like the lock area, you could stretch it out pretty good, and you can get down in there and just, yeah, you should be able to. They're pretty thin. Like, the Norseman's really thin, and it'll get in there. It is a tight fit though on the Norseman. So, but like, if you had to get down in the screws, down in here it's shorter, it's stiffer because you have less of it sticking out. So it comes in handy. It comes in, they come in handy. I've been watching a lot of watchmaking videos. And watchmakers use these, especially this fiberglass one, to take oxidation off the parts that they want to keep really nice. Because the fiberglass is just abrasive enough to get rid of the iron oxide and clean up any like surface rust, not pitting and not heavy rust, but like surface discoloration, rust and stuff like that, but not affect, like I said, it doesn't affect the actual surface finish. So they're really neat. And I saw them on a video. How am I enjoying the Norseman? I just showed you how dirty it is. It is great. I've used it enough that I've had to sharpen it twice now. And I feel as though the edge is lasting longer. It had a factory edge on it. Now, I know that that Eric and John are really careful about how they do stuff, but it felt like it wasn't holding, I was gonna get upset. It didn't feel like it was holding an edge the way I wanted it to for the first couple days. And I think that's because that factory edge may have just been a little bit hot. They may have gotten it a little bit warm. The forward edge was fine. It was back in here. And now that I've sharpened it like twice, I used it all day yesterday for cutting stuff up. And it's still screaming sharp. So I think it was just a matter of, I had the same issue with my Microtech DOC. For the first, I was kind of disappointed. It was the whole LMAX thing. So it's possible that somebody else sharpened this with a machine and did a really good job of it, but you know, it being a used knife, I think it was still the factory edge, but after two sharpenings, it's fine. Well, I would say so, but I pretty much followed their edge geometry. Their edge geometry on this is really good. So I kind of just followed it when it cuts that well originally, and I definitely followed their convex on that forward edge. That is nightmarishly sharp at 1,000 grit. And like I was saying, that RWL 34 that's a 1,000 grit edge, and it polished up. It's, if anything, it's a little scratched because I cut up a bunch of cardboard with it, and I whittled down some wood. Dude, super, super, super comfortable for cutting things because of the way it sits in your hand. It's just a great knife. A lot of people are like, oh, that blade's not so useful. I have used this for everything. It comes in really handy for stuff. Like I said, it's like having two knives in one. You got that forward edge. I don't know when I'm due for a shave, so just hold out for that one. Like, you talking like with the front? This thing's great. And that was even with me. I had my fingers on the lock bar putting tension, and it still falls shut like that. I was trying to slow it down. I do it intentionally because it is scary. This thing drops shut so fast that it's scary. So what I do is I put a little bit of tension. I'm pushing on the lock bar. It still drops fucking shut while you're pinching it. So yeah, it's Loctite's holding. It drops fast, but I can kind of feel it starting to get dirty. I can feel a little bit of grit, but like I said, it's another one that I can just run under the sink. I really can. I just put it under the sink, hot water a couple times, and then I've got got some of these, and this is exactly what this is for. It's over here for a reason. So when this thing gets really dirty, I can just go like this, put that in there, and then just put it in, and then just close the knife while that's in there, and just wipe down my entire detent track. Yes, I am in Cali. So yes, I will be going to Blade Show West. Maybe Blade in, we're not sure yet. We may be doing it. Here's the thing, as long as you're careful. Like I said, I just put a little tension on it so it doesn't, the reason, no. California, as a state, does not have a restriction on size limits or anything like that for folding knives. Some municipalities do, such as San Francisco and things like that, where it's like a 3-inch limit, but they usually don't enforce that so much. Pocket knives, you don't have to worry about it being concealed weapons charged like you do in some states. And California literally does not have anything against, you can carry a fixed blade up to any size you want as long as it's not concealed. So as long as any portion of that knife is visible, you're not carrying a concealed weapon. And then with my little fixed blade, I found out, even carrying that concealed, it falls into the same realm as a folding knife because it's got a 3-inch blade. It's smaller. My fixed blade knife that I designed is smaller than a Sebenza. And it's a good bit smaller than this because this is like 9 inches overall. So I did the video and somebody was like, he's not joking about how big his hands are because you know how big a Norseman is. They were like, it does not look very big in his hands. So, but you know what they say about guys with big feet, big hands, big shoes, big gloves. I'm telling you, there's a lot. Like, everybody just seems to think that California is just one great big city, and it's not. It's not. You drive out of San Diego headed west. East. If you drive out of San Diego heading west, you're gonna get wet. If you drive out of San Diego and head east, you're in the country until you hit Yuma. Like, you leave San Diego, and you go out past like El Cajon area and hit the 8 east and start heading out. The next thing you're gonna hit are some small little places, and then you're gonna hit Yuma, and then the next thing you're gonna hit from there is a little town called Dateland, and then after Dateland, the next thing you hit's Casa Grande, Arizona at the 8-10 split. And that's where you're gonna head up north and go to Phoenix. There's nothing. Really, there's huge big chunks of California. If you guys remember, Nico and I went up to San Francisco. in San Diego, yeah, my last duty station was here. So yeah, it's like there's big areas where you just, if you can get right out of San Diego in 40 minutes, 30 minutes, you'll be in the mountains out near the reservations and stuff. It's a lot of country out here. Between here and Los Angeles, it's pretty consistently just like city, suburbs, and everything between here and Los Angeles. Then you get outside of Los Angeles and you start up through the Grapevine and things like that, headed up north, depending on which way you go. If you go 805 or 5, depending on how you're going. Or I'm sorry, not 805, the 5 or the 15, because 805 dumps onto the 5. So if you're taking the 15 headed up, you're heading out towards, so towards Vegas. You can take the 15 pretty much out to Vegas and stuff. But if depending on how you're going, there's great big tracks on nothing. And you guys saw it when Nico and I went up to Central Valley to go up to Petaluma. If you watch the video of us making the trip up to Beg Knives and Mattia Barani Cutlery when we went up there that weekend, big tracks of fucking nothing. Big nothings. So, was that somebody wrote something? Yeah, of course, I told you this, since I was like a kid, the knife thing's been a thing. And the thing I carried most, let me see, I had a Gerber Easy Out that I carried a lot. And I had a Gerber, what was the one that they had that was the Fairbairn Applegate, the Applegate folder. But I had knives that I'd had since I was a kid that I carried a lot too, mostly traditional style pocket knives. And then, you know, always had a Leatherman and a Buck 110 and a sheath on my, but that's what I carried the most, I'd have to tell you, is a Buck 110, because that's basically what everybody had. That's what they had in the ship store, and you just put it in your little pouch on your side. I am going to do a video about something that is real similar to that. I'll give you guys a sneak peek of what the video I want to try and shoot maybe later today is, and that's some unique, kind of a unique knife that I have that I actually forgot I had. I've had this. I got this from an old dude, and I had a Marlin Spike, but I didn't carry a Marlin Spike as much as you would expect, because I was not a bosun mate. I was a gunner's mate, so I wasn't doing a lot working with lines. Very rarely. I have a Marlin Spike knife, but I didn't carry it. So this, no, it's not a Civivi Slippy. This is something I've had, like, this thing is older than a lot of you. Like, I know I have a good bit of younger subscribers. This is actually, I bought this used from an old guy. I bought a gun from this guy back in the day. Or no, I went to go see a gun that a guy had for sale. And I was like, I'll go see it, and we'll do the paperwork, we'll transfer it. And I didn't like it. I didn't like the gun, but he had this, and you can see this is old. The leather is kind of stained and shit. And it still smells like it was in a toolbox. But this is a Case Hobo. And I'm gonna do a video about this because this is a cool little setup. So you have a knife, a fork, and a spoon, but this is one of the nicest hobos, and you can use these as bottle openers, but they're technically what holds the knife together. So not to give you any more, but yeah, nice sharp little knife, a fork, and a spoon. So this is an old one. This guy had this, he's like, I got that from my boy when he was in the Cub Scouts, and he never carried it. And he's like, it's been in my toolbox. He's like, that's been just sitting in a toolbox because I just didn't have any place for it. And they're expensive. These things are like $100 and something bucks. And I don't know how it was when he bought it, but you can see it's old because there's like all the markings and stuff. But I used this. This was my silverware set. For like, you can tell, look at that. And it's got the hobo case. So this, I mean, these were, I always wanted one of those, and when I saw it, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna buy the gun, but he's like that? He's like, yeah, I'll sell it to you. And I told him, he wouldn't charge me, give it $10. And I'm like, that thing's worth more than $10. So, well, guys, I have to get off here. The wife's coming home. The wife just came home. I just turned my Bluetooth off because it was going to connect to her car, but I've got to get out of her kitchen. So, guys, I love you all. I wound up staying on here way longer than I intended to. I was only going to be on here for 30 minutes. But like I said, there's video up for the members. It'll be up tomorrow. I may shoot a video about this later today and try and get edited and up for Thursday. And then I've got some other videos I want to do. Like I've got a couple things that have come in. Yeah, what I was saying is we found a place. We found a place. So I can stop worrying about that. I don't think we ever got around to the actual good news. We found a place, in theory. So, guys, take it easy. I love you all. I'll see you next time.